Okay, I think I got it started here. Okay, we've got some people in here. Tell me if the latency is any better here. Can you hear me? How is everything? Let me know in the comments here if you would, please. Sounds good. Much better. Thank you. Adam is there. Scott, thank you very much. Okay, I'm so sorry. Always technical difficulties, it seems like, with these live streams. Okay, great. Everybody sounds like they can hear me. Wonderful. We'll give people a little bit of a chance to get in. While we're doing that, I just wanted to let you know that we were in Europe when the floods happened. And so a bunch of people, including probably some of you, were commenting or texting or Instagramming or whatever, telling me that the floods had happened. And I do appreciate that, actually, because we were, for the most part, off the grid. I mean, we had access, but we were so busy going around seeing things that just wasn't, checking on many things. And so that was quite a bummer. We were in Germany when we heard that, and instantly just kind of thought about everybody who was involved in the floods, of course, all the people that live in those towns, the visitors whose trips were affected. I'll talk about this a little bit later, but the first thought that went through my mind was the people that live in Cook City, a little tiny town that we visited 2 years ago, or last year actually, and there's not that many people, but they would just kind of cut off from everything. So I felt really bad for the people involved, and thought it was kind of crazy too that this is one of the most significant, natural disasters, you might call it, in Yellowstone's history. So I'll cover that a little bit in this little presentation as well. So I'm going to give a little presentation, and of course take your questions. That's that's what I really want to do. But I realize people are floating in here, and you probably want to hear some of my thoughts. So got home from Europe. We actually have a trip planned to Bozeman, Montana next week. And we were going to go down to Chico Hot Springs. If you haven't heard of that, look it up. Of course, we'll be doing a video on it later, but we were going to go stay at Chico Hot Springs and swim. This is a resort area that's just north of Gardner, Montana. And then we were going to head into the park through Gardner and through Mammoth. Of course, we knew that wasn't going to be able to happen. So right after we got home from Europe, I said, I need to go up there right now and check it out. So I got online and got some booking for a campsite for 2 nights, and I drove up there. Yellowstone's about 4 hours away from my house, so kind of cool that I can do that. And so anyway, went up there, stayed 2 nights just by myself. Left my family at home because I just wanted to go check it out, and then kind of give you guys a report on what's going on, because I knew so many people had questions about whether to visit and whether it was worth it and what were the changes and all that. And of course, things are changing on a daily basis. But I did find out quite a bit, and I want to tell you a little bit here tonight before I take some of your questions. So we've got about 30 people in here. Good. On the chat, let us know where you're from. That would be great. I know that Cheryl is on the chat here in another room. And so, which is kind of good, because I need to hear from her whether all this is working or not. Okay, so first of all, as we get going here, I want to give you a brief overview of kind of where the flood damages were, okay, and a little bit about the park. So I'm going to put a link in here to our website that has a map on it. And I can't share my screen on these YouTube lives, so I apologize. But if you're on this from a desktop, go ahead and pull that up and scroll down just a little bit. You'll see a map there. So a lot of people aren't familiar with the layout of Yellowstone. So I just wanted to explain to you kind of where the floods were and what happened. So on that map there, you'll see a map of Yellowstone, and Yellowstone is laid out in a figure 8 pattern. There's an upper loop and a lower loop. Okay, and then there are 5 entrances to the park. Now, if you've never been to Yellowstone, it is a really big park. Those entrances are forever away from each other, it feels like. I mean, if you drive through the park, it'll take maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours or so to get from one entrance to the other. And that's if you're going through the park. If you're going outside of the park, then you're going a long, long ways around. And so these entrances are quite far from each other. And where you enter the park can make where you're coming from, makes a big difference. That'll affect where you're entering the park. So anyway, these 5 entrances, there are 5 roads that connect to that middle road. The middle road is called the Grand Loop Road. That is a figure 8 type of a pattern there. And we always just call it the upper loop and the lower loop. Okay, if you look at that map, the upper loop and the 2 roads that connect to the upper loop were the ones that were most affected by the floods. So you can see that there's a north entrance, which is Gardner, Montana, and there's a northeast entrance, which is Cook City Silvergate. Cook City and Silvergate are 2 tiny towns. They've kind of combined into one, I don't know, one unit, sort of one census district or something like that. And there are about 150 people that live in Cook City and Silvergate. Gardner's slightly larger. Gardner was the original entrance to Yellowstone in the early days, and now today is now the second most used entrance to Yellowstone. Yellowstone, the west entrance, has surpassed it as the most popular west entrance, I believe. Well, if you scroll down on that article, you can see a little chart of how many cars entered those entrances. So west entrance is twice as used as the north entrance, and the north entrance is number 2. So a lot of people fly into Bozeman, and then they drive down through the north entrance. The roads to the north entrance and to the northeast entrance were the most damaged. They were, some of them, it was around the north entrance there, around Gardner, that you might have seen the house getting taken away by the flood, which was just a sad, crazy sight, and really sad. I can't imagine going through that. So those roads were damaged. Now the northern loop, or the upper loop, it had a fair amount of mudslides on it. So the roads on the upper loop they typically sit kind of high above the rivers, but they still had some mudslides happen. Meanwhile, the connecting roads that go out to the entrances, those are lower in the valleys, and that's where they got most of the damage. So currently, that upper loop has been reopened. When I visited last week, it was closed. They were checking out the mudslides. There was some other issues, but those roads, that upper loop has now been reopened. But the connecting roads to the north entrance and to the northeast entrance are still closed. There's no telling whether they're going to be fixed this year or not, but I'll kind of cover that a little bit later here. So the lower loop was really not affected much at all. There was a mudslide around on the east side, I believe, and all that, but not too affected. It was mostly that upper loop. I want to share another link with you here that just shows some of the flood damage, which is just a reminder that nature is really in charge here. We live in an amazing day and age, an industrial age, where humans have kind of conquered a lot of nature and built these amazing things, and we build dams and highways that go up over the mountains and all that, and it's amazing. But sometimes nature reminds us that it's in charge. Sean, I have been putting the links here in our chat. Sean says he's not sure where the links are. I have sent them a couple of times. Is anybody getting those? Let me know if you're not getting those links. I just put another one in the chat window there. Okay. So that's a little overview. Jill Morby, yes, I got them. Okay, some people get them. Thank you. Okay, so thanks, Sean. Okay, so that's a little background on where the floods happen and all that. I want to give you just a little bit of perspective on this too. This is the history teacher in me, so I'm sorry, bear with me here, but these are actually some pretty significant floods. So there were at least two major other natural disasters that happened in Yellowstone in the past. One was in 1959. It was called the Hebgen earthquake. Sometimes it's called the Yellowstone earthquake. The epicenter was actually in the park right by West Yellowstone, but the significant damage happened in a little valley outside of West Yellowstone, right by Hebgen Lake. Hebgen Lake is a beautiful area. You can actually camp along the lake. You can go boating there, and it's really a nice place to visit. But an earthquake happened near there, which caused a massive rock slide. People were actually camping there. It was at night. It was in August at 11:30 at night. It was a full moon, which is a little bit of a miracle because then people could actually kind of see some of their friends and all that who were, they were all trying to run to try to find high ground and get away from some of the damage. About 20 people died in that earthquake. Some people washed away in the river. I think all 20 of them are actually at the bottom of the river or underneath rocks where they were smashed. It was an incredibly tragic event. 1959 Hebgen earthquake. It was as large as the San Francisco earthquake in the early 1900s. And there's actually the rock slide that came down caused another. It actually dammed up the Madison River and caused a lake right next to Hebgen Lake. So it's kind of strange. You go out there, there's Hebgen Lake, and then there's Earthquake Lake right next to it. So they named it Earthquake Lake, and it's still there. The rock slide dammed it up and is still there. They kind of built a spillway to get through. There is a visitor center there called the Earthquake Lake Visitor Center that you can stop at if you are out in that area that tells the whole story. And I actually cover that in my audio guide for the park, for Yellowstone Park. Just a tragic story and also a heroic story because there were many amazing heroes in that story. So that's one major thing. And that earthquake actually damaged the Old Faithful Inn a little bit and did cause some rock slides on some of the roads. And so it did affect the park. The other major natural disaster was in 1988. There were the famous Yellowstone fires. So there are forest fires every year, but in 1988 they really got out of control. And there's kind of a whole historical reason for that. They used to put out the fires as soon as they could, and it kind of caused a lot of undergrowth in the forest. And then they changed their philosophy, their environmental philosophy, to let natural fires burn. If they were naturally caused, they would let them burn. And so it was a really dry year, it was a really windy year, and these fires burned for like 2 months, and everybody was kind of freaking out. The media was they were covering it all the time, and the president got involved, and people putting pressure on the park to try to put the fires out, even though their philosophy had changed to let those natural fires burn. So it was quite an event. And in retrospect, taught us a lot about the role of fires in an ecosystem, because it really kind of cleaned out the park and a lot of that undergrowth that caused a lot of pine cones or a lot of trees to regenerate. And so Bob Malin was in the park in 1988. They closed the park 1 week after we left. Yes, there was quite a few people that were still touring around while the wildfires were going. There was virtually no wildlife that was killed during those wildfires, and they do estimate about, I think, a third of the park, maybe I think a third, or I can't remember if it was a third or 2/3 were touched by the fires. It was quite a bit of the park that was actually affected by the fires. So to put this in context, I mean, I would say the 2022 floods were every bit as much of the disaster, in particular because it has affected the economies of the nearby cities so much. I mean, these people who live in Cook City and who live in Gardner, I mean, there's only about 1,000 residents in Gardner. There's only about 100 residents in Cook City, Silvergate, and their whole economy, of course, is based on Yellowstone, and they have such a small travel season. Yellowstone is over 7 or 8,000 feet high in elevation. It's located far north in Wyoming on the edge of Montana. So the visiting season for Yellowstone is pretty much 3 to 4 months. And anyway, they obviously are affected by this in a big way. If you're looking for a little bit more on the stories of Yellowstone, I'm going to share this link with you here. I made this video. You might have already watched it. I spent a whole week making this video here and crafting it out and scripting it out and trying to tell the complete story of Yellowstone as far as I know it and as far as I've experienced it. And so it is a long video, but I do talk about the fires of '88. I talk about the earthquake and a number of other things, and actually made it for the 150th birthday of Yellowstone, which is this year. It was made a national park in 1872. So there's been a lot of kind of celebrating the 150th birthday of Yellowstone. So that's another kind of a crazy thing, is how it happened. These floods happened on the birthday of Yellowstone. Okay, let's talk about now what I learned here visiting the park. So Cheryl sent out an email to all of our email subscribers the other day saying, after the flood comes the rainbow. And I really liked that, because we really did talk about this quite a bit. And we kind of had the feeling that maybe some good will actually come out of this event. And so the park did get $50 million in funding, emergency funding, to fix these roads. And so that's good. The park operates on a budget of about 77 million or something like that per year. So to get 50 million to help fix that, I mean, hopefully, that'll cover all the costs, maybe then some. Maybe they can also use some extra funding. The park was less crowded. So when I visited, it was like a ghost town. It felt like it was an amazing time to visit. People a little spooked or trying to stay away from it because of some of the closures, but it was incredible. I spent 2 days on the lower loop in Yellowstone and did a bunch of new things that I hadn't even done, and still it didn't do everything. There's no way you can do everything in Yellowstone. There's too much to do there. So, and then that's the other thing. There's a lot of lodging and camping that is available in the park because so many people canceled their reservations. So it's a pretty good time actually to hop on that and find some lodging inside the park. And I would highly recommend that, because if you think about it, with the northern entrance being closed, that's that many more people, or however many more people are going to continue to visit the park this year, that are now going to be considering going through West Yellowstone. Most of them will be going through West Yellowstone, but there's limited lodging, obviously, in West Yellowstone. West Yellowstone, also a small community, only has about 1,200 people that live there. So these are small little communities, that they have lodging, but I mean, not enough to double up, basically. So this is a pretty good time to get lodging in the park if you're considering visiting. Lodging in the park and camping in the park often books up 6 months to a year ahead of time. And so it was pretty good. I think that would be a great way to go. So other things that I noticed when I visited, some of the restaurants and services were not open. Now, I don't know if that had anything to do with the floods, but I was a little surprised that as many restaurants were closed as there were. Now, there are still plenty of restaurants that are open. So each major stop, there's restaurants. But like if there were 3 restaurants, maybe 2 of them were open and 1 wasn't. Now, I think those are opening up quickly. But that was kind of interesting. Some of the restaurants were closed. Some of the services were closed as well. So they had some pipes some of the pipes were kind of contaminated by the floods. So like some of the restrooms and some of the drinking fountains were closed. So if you're going to visit, definitely take your water and kind of be prepared. I had a big water jug, Cheryl's favorite water jug. I stole it from her for a couple of days and took it up there, and it was really helpful. Super useful, because yes, like some of the stops, you'll have the water lines are contaminated and they've got it closed. So be prepared on that. I noticed that they seem to be short staffed like everywhere else. Again, I don't know how much of this has to do with the floods or if it's just, our crazy economy. They did send some of the people who were working up north, they did send them down south to the southern loop to help out. But now that the northern loop has been reopened, surely they'll send them back up there, and I'm sure there's going to still be some staffing issues if you visit. Okay, also some of the side roads were closed. So like the main loop roads were open, or well, the southern loop road was open, and now again the upper loop is open. But some of the side roads were closed. So there's little side canyons every once in a while that you can pull off the main road. There's one called Fire Hole Lake Drive, Fire Hole Canyon. Some of these were closed. It seemed kind of random whether they were closed. I don't know if they were affected by the floods or not, but I'm assuming they were. Either that or they're just so short-staffed that they can't really kind of maintain them and be there for any issues or anything like that. So that gives you kind of an idea of what I encountered there. Okay, I'd like you to put some questions. If you have any questions, put some in the remarks, and I'll address them here in just a moment. Just about done with kind of covering some of my little presentation that I have for you here. So here's some things that you need to know if you're going to visit this year. First of all, right now, again, the upper loop is open, but the entrances to the north and the northeast are closed. It's going to be real interesting to see if they get those roads completed before the winter, because like the residents in Cook City, again, I mentioned earlier, my first thought was the residents in Cook City, what's going to happen to them? Because my first thought was that it was going to take years to get these roads fixed. Those residents that live in Cook City, they actually cannot go to the east in the winter, because to the east of them is the Absaroka Mountains. The locals pronounce it Absaroka Mountains. I don't know why, but the mountains are right there. And one of the passes is called the Beartooth Highway, and the other pass is called the Chief Joseph Highway. And both of those are actually snowed in the winter. There's no way they can plow all of those in the winter. So they can't go east. So their only way to civilization is to go west through Yellowstone National Park, over to Mammoth, and up to Gardner. So the park does plow that road the entire year. The rest of the park becomes a snowmobile park. They actually let the snow build up on the roads, and then they reopen it in the middle of winter as a snowmobile park. But the entire year they plow the northern road. I don't know if Cook City is the only reason why they do that, but I imagine that's one of the major reasons why they do that. So I was kind of concerned, like, what's going to happen with these residents? And I actually asked a number of people at the park, what do you think? What's going to happen? A lot of the people at the park feel like they're going to get the roads completed so that those Cook City residents don't have to evacuate or whatever. They're not going to be trapped in the winter. But I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Of course, we don't know. Currently, the road going from the upper loop out to the northeast entrance, which is where Cook City is, that road is Lamar Valley. Okay, that's the famous Lamar Valley. Everybody wants to go to Lamar Valley. So that's because there's so much wildlife there, and bison and elk and wolves hang out there and all this. I do want to make a case, though, a little bit for the southern loop here that's a little overlooked. Now, if your idea of going to Yellowstone is to just kind of pull out a chair on the side of the road and just sit there for 5 or 6 hours and wait for wildlife, and that's plenty of people's idea, that's fine if that is yours and you have your scope and your binoculars and all that, then maybe this year's a bad time to go, because you would want to go to Lamar Valley for that. But if you're the type of person that you want to see the wildlife, but you also like to see other things, and you want a variety and all that, you can still go and have a wonderful time without Lamar Valley. So on the southern loop, there are 2 valleys that have wildlife. There's Hayden Valley and there is Madison Valley. Both of these are very scenic. Hayden might even be a little more scenic than Lamar, maybe, or at least kind of on par. I have looked at the wildlife numbers as well, and although the northern loop might beat the southern loop by just a hair on the wildlife numbers, there are more wolves that hang out on the northern loop and in Lamar Valley, but they can be pretty hard to see during the summer. You have to get up really early and go out to the right spots and have a high-powered scope because they're very far away. So my point is, you can see plenty of wildlife on the lower loop as well. When I was there, I saw plenty of bull elk. I saw a black bear in Madison Valley. I mean, Madison Valley, nobody ever talks about Madison Valley, but I always see wildlife in Madison Valley. It's wonderful. That's the one that comes in from the west entrance. So again, with 2 valleys on the southern loop and with all the other variety on the lower loop, I say it's still totally worth it. And you can still get up to the northern loop, which is where a few more of the black bears hang out up on the northern loop. Although, again, I saw it in the southern loop, so you can see them everywhere. Okay, so that kind of covers that a little bit. Again, other things to know. Currently, it is not that crowded, but we never know how the season will go. Maybe everybody's going to start rushing there and get in there. But if you're looking for a place, I think this year is a very good time to visit. You can get a place in the park. By the way, I did a tour of the Old Faithful Inn while I was there, and that place is incredible. It's like the largest log cabin in the world. It's really a remarkable building. I mean, I could go on for a while about that one. I won't go on, but I'll have some videos coming out and all that. But Old Faithful Inn is fantastic if you can stay there. The Old Faithful Lodge is great. It's right by there, and you can actually sit there and eat and watch Old Faithful erupt. At the Old Faithful Inn, you can sit on the deck and watch it erupt. So, yeah, this is a good chance to stay in the park if you can. It's also a good chance to get other activities in the park. So when I was there, I did a boat ride on Lake Yellowstone. That was fantastic. I had never done that before. And I did a horseback ride at Canyon Village. All at the Northern Loop, there's also horseback rides at the Tower stop, as well as the Old West dinner cookout. So they take you out on a stagecoach and feed you a steak dinner out in this valley. It's really pretty, and we did that last year. It was wonderful. I don't know if it's open right now because they just barely opened that or reopened the upper loop, but I bet it'll be open this year. So this is a good chance to do some of those other activities that you might not think about, and they're all available right now. So that's great. Okay, other things to know. If you're flying into Bozeman, so I know so many of you are flying into Bozeman, Montana, and you're thinking you drive down to Gardner and the northern entrance. But driving over to West Yellowstone is not that much farther. It's only like 20 minutes farther than Bozeman. So that's really not a major concern. You can still fly into Bozeman and drive down to West Yellowstone and enter the park that way. So don't be too concerned about that. In fact, next week, that's where we're going. We're going to go to Bozeman, Chico Hot Springs, Big Sky. We're going to go to Virginia City and Nevada City and Ennis. So we're going to go visit all that area and kind of check it out. Okay, another thing is the 3 entrances on the lower loop are still open. So you've got West Yellowstone, you've got the east entrance, which heads out to Cody, Wyoming, and then you've got the south entrance, which is Grand Teton National Park. So on the east entrance is Cody. Now, we usually say Cody, Wyoming is too far away to use as a base for visiting Yellowstone. However, if you've already got a trip planned to Yellowstone and you had lodging in Gardner and all you can find is Cody, it's still doable. Okay, it does take about an hour and 45 minutes maybe to get to the Grand Loop Road, but it is still doable. So you could stay in Cody and head into the park that way. It is an incredibly gorgeous drive. Cody's a really fun city. You want to visit the Buffalo Bill Center of the West, do the Cody Rodeo. There's so many things to do there. We've done a video on Cody, Wyoming, and people love Cody, Wyoming. But the drive in there on the Buffalo Bill Highway is a really scenic drive, and so you would love that. So it's a possibility considering the other options. I know that a lot of people, you have plans and you're kind of like, should I cancel my trip or not? I would look for in-park lodging, then maybe go to West Yellowstone. And if all that is not doable, maybe look at Cody. Okay, another thing is there is road construction in Yellowstone. There's always road construction in Yellowstone. They just spent 2 years working on the road going over Mount Washburn, which is called Dunraven Pass. It goes from the Canyon stop up to the Roosevelt stop, and that it took them, like I said, it took them 2 or 3 years to get that done. And then they had the floods, which caused a bunch of mudslides on the road. I was kind of thinking about that actually as well, thinking, oh my gosh, those poor construction workers just worked forever on that road. But I think they got that cleared off, and I think everything is fine there. They are always doing a road construction. So on the lower loop, they're doing a road construction between Old Faithful and West Thumb. And so if you look at the map, let me put another link here for you. This is an important link that you always want to check before you go. It has update on all the road openings and closures and stuff in Yellowstone. And again, since Yellowstone is the roads close down in the winter, and well, they close down in November and in March, basically, and then they have a gradual reopening as they get it plowed. You always want to check that site for the roads, but they show construction on the southern loop and that you'll experience delays and all that. But I didn't see, I mean, I saw it and I had small delays, but it wasn't that big of a deal. So not a game changer. Some people get concerned about that, but that wasn't too bad. Okay, and then here's another link before I get to your questions here. Another link that you want to check out is the flood recovery and operations link on the Yellowstone webpage there. So that's all there. The most up-to-date information is on that page with the floods. So they're saying 93% of the roadways in the park are open. Okay, so let me get to some of your questions now. Okay, somebody asked, is the eastern leg of the northern loop open? The answer is yes. DJT is asking about the eastern leg of the northern loop. That is called Dunraven Pass, and it goes over Mount Washburn. And that was under construction for the last 2 years. That is now open. Michael Edwards wants me to recommend 2 lodging locations in the park. I think I already did. So Old Faithful Inn is wonderful. If you can stay there, and now's a good chance. By the way, the rooms are old. I mean, the thing was built in 1904. So they are old. So, you need to be a little prepared to do the rustic thing. But all the lodging in the park is sort of rustic because there's no air conditioning, there's no TVs, there's no internet. So be prepared to handle that. But Old Faithful Inn. And then I would also recommend over at Lake Yellowstone, there is the Lake Yellowstone Hotel, the Grand Lady of the Lake, they call it, a big, beautiful yellow hotel. And I spent some time in there last week, and it was really, really pretty. And then also Lake Lodge is right by there. Again, both of those right on Lake Yellowstone. So that's a pretty cool place to stay. Raina Kinley asks, are the majority of the bathrooms at trailheads and larger stops closed? If so, any word on when they will have that fixed? So Raina, the majority of the bathrooms were not closed. Again, some of them were because of the pipes and stuff, but most of them were open. They were kind of a disaster. Some of them were were a bit of a disaster. Like usually it takes until later in the season for them to fill up, if you know what I mean. So most of these are vault toilets. They're plop toilets. They're not flush toilets. And it usually takes a while for those to kind of turn into a mess. But some of them were already a mess. Some of them are out of toilet paper altogether. So again, staffing issues and some headaches that way. At most of the geyser basins and the trailheads, there are plop toilets or vault toilets. When you get to the established places like Old Faithful, they have plenty of flush toilets there and visitor centers and stuff like that. But so Raina, you'd be fine. There's still plenty of restrooms there. Okay. Aaron Hodel asks, entering through the east on our first day, should we try heading north first or just go south? Aaron, you could go either way. Typically, if I was going in through Cody, I would stay on the south loop because it's such a long drive to get there already that to then head up all the way around the north loop, that makes for a really long day. So I'd probably try to stay with the south if possible. And then if you're going to stay somewhere in the park, then use that to do the north loop. We'll be going to Grizzly Lodge in September. Any word on them? So Mark Calvert, Grizzly Lodge, I believe you're referring to the one that's in Cook City. Well, that's a wonderful place to stay, but no word yet on whether that road is going to be open or whether that entrance is going to be open by September. So you're just going to have to kind of cross your fingers there, okay? The Williams family asks, is the Beartooth Highway open? So I saw that they have opened certain sections of the Beartooth Highway. I don't know if the full thing is open because that actually had some damage as well. And if anybody has driven the Beartooth Highway, let me tell you, that's an experience. That is way up there, way high, and really quite a scary road to drive. And so my dad and I were just talking today, like whoever decides to plow the Beartooth Highway, that is a brave person who really needs a job badly, I guess. But anyway, most of it's open. But the thing is, again, you can't come into the park through the Beartooth Highway. Jill Morby, are there tours? I'm really hoping We're in the Rockies will do a tour. If a person flies into Bozeman, or does a person have to rent a car and do the park on your own? Okay, Jill, there are plenty of tours. And yes, I'm going to put together a tour for next year. So yes, stay tuned for that because I am working on putting a tour together for Yellowstone for 2023. But there are plenty of other tours. So in the park, there's actually a concessionaire, Xanterra, that runs most of the restaurants, and they give tours, like wildlife tours and, quite a few different tours actually. And then there are plenty of contractors as well, just outside people that can bring tour buses in. So yes, but Jill's bringing that up because she wants us to do a tour, and we are going to do a tour for sure. Okay, if Valerie is wondering if the alternating license plate system might come back in July. Valerie, that's a good question. I don't think it will personally, only because I think many visitors have canceled their plans for this year, and I don't really expect the visitorship to kind of break records like all the national parks are doing right now. So I kind of doubt it, but it's always possible. And these government programs, I mean, they'll change very quickly a lot of times. So we just have to stay tuned for that. By the way, the alternating license plate system, a lot of people ask, is it still worth visiting the park if they have that alternating license plate system? The alternating license plate system was that if your license plate ends in an even number, then you get to go in on an even day. If it ends in an odd number, you get to go in on an odd day. And so a lot of people were asking me, is it still worth it? If I can only go in half of the time that I'm visiting there? My answer is yes, because first of all, the 2 days that you get to go in there, let's say you have a 4-day trip and you get to go in there 2 days, you can do a lot because the crowds are so much less, and then it also gives you a good chance to experience some of those outside the park activities. And there are many. There's really beautiful areas outside of the park and cool stuff. Like, and I've done a video on things to do in West Yellowstone region, things to do in Cody. Of course, down south, there's Grand Teton. So take that opportunity to go visit Grand Teton National Park, which is every bit as wonderful as Yellowstone and gets kind of overshadowed. But the scenery is actually better in Grand Teton. And there's tons of wildlife there as well. It's just as good as Yellowstone for wildlife, pretty much. So use that opportunity to go do some of those things. I mentioned Earthquake Lake and Hebgen Lake. And I mean, there's plenty to do outside. So if the alternating license plate system is in place, I still say it's good to go. Okay, Mike Baggett asked, are the roads which are now open in good condition? So the roads are in fine condition for Yellowstone. So Yellowstone's got a lot of potholes and a lot of road damage because most of the year there is winter, and so the roads get hammered, which is why they're always doing construction on the roads and fixing them up and stuff. But yes, Mike, they're in good Yellowstone condition, which means you can still get some rough spots there. Okay, Jane asks, could you please advise what would be the best spot to stop for the first night coming out of Denver heading to South Dakota? We are thinking of hot springs. You know what, Jane? I'm not quite sure what you're asking. Best spot to stop for the first night coming out of Denver heading to South Dakota. Jane, I'm going to pass on that for a minute. If you can clarify what's going on there, that would be good. Raina Kinley, are the backcountry trails all open? Yes, they were, Raina. They're all open as far as I could tell, and I did quite a bit of hiking when I was there, so I think they're open. Thank you, Being McBean. Hello. Let's see. Mike Baggett's asking about the alternating license plate system. Again, we don't know on that if it's going to be reinstated. Coke Girl wants to fly into Billings and take the Beartooth Highway to get to Yellowstone. I would not plan on that this year because if they do get that road reopened, I think it'll be late in the year, September, October maybe. So I wouldn't plan on that as a plan. So I try to fly into either Bozeman, Salt Lake City, or Jackson, Wyoming. That would be your better bet there. Being McBean is Teresa S. Hello, Teresa. So Teresa bought one of our guides and was just wonderful. We actually met with her and helped her plan her trip a little bit. We have a consulting service. So we met with her, and then she actually came to our hometown and we hung out for a little bit. That was fun. So, okay. Dorna Shokuhai, is asking whether you would recommend going this year or waiting it out for next year. So again, part of that depends on what your goal for Yellowstone is. But I actually think this is a really, really good year to visit because the crowds are going to be less and you're going to be able to get stuff in the park and you're going to be able to get around and see what you want to see. Now, again, we can't predict the future. So maybe there's a big rush on Yellowstone and it gets really crowded, but I'm kind of thinking not. I'm kind of thinking it'll be less crowded. So Amy Austin says she went to Soda Springs, Idaho, and they have a geyser that explodes every hour faithfully. That is true. I've actually did a video about Soda Springs on my channel. It's called Bear Lake region. Bear Lake, Idaho, and Utah is the region. And Soda Springs has an actual natural geyser that they've hooked to a timer, and it goes off every hour. So that's kind of funny. Okay, so let's see what else we got here. Greg Childs, hello. How many handicap parking spots would you estimate at Jenny Lake? So this is Jenny Lake's down at Grand Teton. And Greg, I can't remember at Jenny Lake. I'm sorry, I don't want to overspeak there, but I do think there's plenty of handicap parking all throughout. Okay, so Jin Yu asks, we're visiting Yellowstone in August. Will we need a reservation to enter the park? And is the West Yellowstone entrance open? Currently, you do not need a reservation. So many national parks are moving over to a reservation system. Yellowstone bucked that trend, and they went with the alternating license plate system after meeting with many businesses in the area. All the businesses liked the alternating license plate system better than the reservation system. And so I actually liked it better too. I thought it was great. And so that was kind of cool because if you already had a trip, you didn't have to worry about the reservation thing. So, and then the West Yellowstone entrance is open. Okay, IB says, with regards to road conditions, you can text a certain number and they'll keep you updated with the road conditions. That is a good idea, but as she says, we didn't have great internet signal. So here's the thing, internet, you really don't have internet in the park, or you don't have cell connection in the park. So be aware of that. Every once in a while you get your messages come through, Old Faithful a little bit, but for the most part, no cell connection in Yellowstone. Mike Baggett asks, any issues obtaining gasoline? And the answer is no. There's plenty of gas stations in the park. You can get gas at any of the main stops. So don't be too concerned about gas. One thing I noticed was I did fill up outside of the park, and it was about 15 cents cheaper than inside the park. But who knows? The gas prices are going all over the place right now. So, well, they're going up. That's what they're doing. They're going up. Okay, Pablo Navarro asks, will Lamar Valley be available for September? No idea on that one. No idea at all, Pablo. Recommendations. Jane asks, recommendations for RV camping in the park, please. Really, Jane, anywhere. I've actually done a whole article on camping in Yellowstone. So just search online, we're in the Rockies, Yellowstone camping. And you'll see that I've done an article and a video all about camping in Yellowstone. I camped at Bridge Bay, which is over by Lake Yellowstone, and it was wonderful. That's an area where you get a lot of wildlife. In fact, near there is Fishing Bridge RV Park. It is an RV park that requires hard-sided RVs because there are so many grizzly bears in the area that you have to have a hard-sided RV. I stayed at Bridge Bay, which did not require hard-sided RVs, and you could sleep in tents. And when I got there, they said there was a mama grizzly and 2 grizzlies nearby that they had just seen. So I opted to sleep in my Sequoia rather than set up the tent because I didn't want to get eaten by a bear. But anyway, Jane, we've stayed at many of the campgrounds, and they're all great. So Tom asks, is fueling a problem because of the flood? We have a diesel truck. I didn't notice fueling being a problem at all. All the gas stations were open from what I saw. Jane says, we're taking a 30-foot RV. Are there many roads we can't access? Some of the side roads you can't access in an RV, like Firehole Canyon, you can't access. Firehole Lake Drive, you can't access. And I don't know, I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but you could probably search online to find that. But also, if you pull up the Yellowstone map, so I want to show you guys this. This is the brochure they give you when you enter the park. For some reason, they weren't giving this out, but they did give the map. But anyway, typically they'll give you the brochure here. And if you open up the map, by the way, I collect all these brochures. I have a whole wall of these brochures for all the national parks I've visited. This is a map, big old map of Yellowstone. And you can actually pull this map up on their website, on the Yellowstone website. And it's a detailed map. And on there, they'll show like side roads, and it'll tell you a lot of times whether RVs are allowed or not. So check that out. Jill Morby says, great news because I I guess she's saying that about the tours, that we're going to do a tour to Yellowstone next year. Okay, so Darter Man asks, any chance public will be able to drive into Yellowstone from Gardner in mid-September? Again, I have no idea, what the future holds for those roads that connect to the gateway towns of Gardner and Cook City. Again, I initially thought it would take probably years to fix these roads, but strangely, I have an inkling that they'll get them fixed this year. But don't quote me. I have no insider information, none. Yellowstone, believe me, Yellowstone doesn't care about me. I'm nobody to them. So I just kind of think that they might get something done there to help those people out, which would be a miracle and would deserve just huge applause. So we just made a donation to Yellowstone to help. We make regular donations to Yellowstone, but I know that they have plenty of fundraisers going that you can donate to the cause as well. So that's good. But again, if you can't get into that Gardner entrance, again, most of you coming from Bozeman going into Gardner, don't stress too much. You can just go down to West Yellowstone. It's only an extra 20 minutes, and you can go in through that entrance. So Old Ranger says this is surprisingly challenging. Gail Saltzman says we're staying in West Yellowstone. Can we see Prismatic, Old Faithful, West Thumb, and the Upper Falls in one day? So Gail, you can do the full lower loop in one day. It is possible. You can just kind of skim the lower loop. It might be possible to do all those. But here's the thing about Yellowstone. You always have to be real flexible because your plans are always thrown off. Like you'll get in a bison jam or just, I don't know, any number of things can happen. And so, you have to be flexible. But yeah, I think it's probably possible to do all that. Okay, do you know if the park is open 24/7 now, or can you not get in until a ranger gets to an entrance? That's a great question. So this is something I've covered on my website a fair amount, and I need to cover it in some videos. But you can enter the park anytime. So Yellowstone's open 24/7. The rangers don't get to the entrances until about 7 o'clock in the morning. It's funny, they're real coy about it because one time I asked them when they got there and they wouldn't tell me because they know that if they're not there, you could just drive in, right? And that's okay to do. It's fine. If they're not there and you get there really early, you can just drive into the park. It's not, against the rules or anything like that. You just need to, if you don't already have your park pass, you're going to need to pay for that later when you get to a visitor center or another ranger station or something like that. So just obviously be honest about paying your park pass, but it's okay to drive in and out of the park at night. Some of those construction areas though are closed at night. So if you're hoping to kind of get all the way around the lower loop, you might run into a problem there where it might actually be closed at night. So how long should we allow to get from Jax to the marina? Sue Heron asked that. I'm not sure. Oh, I think maybe you're thinking Jackson, Wyoming, maybe. To get to the marina in Yellowstone is a good couple of hours, probably 3 hours maybe to get all the way up there. So my wife, Cheryl, says she loves the idea of supporting the local businesses that have taken a hit from the flood. We're going to a play at the Playmill Playhouse when we visit. So yes, we already had this trip planned to go through the northern entrance and, see all this. And we're going to stick with that trip. As I mentioned, Chico Hot Springs is a resort that's just north of Gardner, Montana. And we want to go see that area anyway. And I've heard wonderful things about Chico Hot Springs. These businesses need the money. I'm not trying to tell you that you have to go just for the businesses, but that's an added side benefit is that you can support these people who just rely on this to get by for the season. They only have a couple months to earn all their money for the whole season. So we're sticking with that trip and that'll be great. So Dorna says we have 4 full days to explore. Will this be too many days and can we do it in less since the crowds is less? Dorna, I think 4 days is perfect. That gives you 2 days on the lower, 2 days on the upper loop, and you have an amazing experience that way. With Lamar Valley being closed, you could maybe cut it back to 3 days and spend 1 day on the upper loop, but really 4 days is wonderful. Again, I spent 2 days on the lower loop, few crowds, and it was just me, so I was just zipping around as fast as I could, and again, still, I couldn't do everything, and there's no way you can do everything. So Bill says we're going next month, and we moved our resort from West Yellowstone to Wilson Do you think Moose Wilson Road will be open and a good way to get to Teton? You know what, Bill? I'm sorry, I don't know about Moose Wilson Road. I haven't quite looked into that road yet, so I don't want to speculate on that one. Tom says we'll be looking at your itinerary to see where I need to adjust because of the flood. Okay, so that's another one. If you've bought my itinerary, my travel guide for Yellowstone, one of the reasons I went there is to make sure that our travel guide is up to date, because that's what we're trying to help you do, is have a great trip to Yellowstone. The travel guide still works. So one of the days, of course, is going out to Lamar Valley. You'll have to cut that part out, but you can spend a little time around Mount Washburn. And again, that upper loop, there's kind of some flexibility there with Mammoth and Tower Roosevelt and some of the activities that you can do there. So the guide actually still works. I designed the guide to be flexible from the get-go. I designed the guide to work no matter where you're coming. If you're coming from any of the different entrances, or if you're staying in the park, if you're camping, if you're lodging, all that. I really did think through how to spend 4 days in Yellowstone in the most efficient way so that you're not driving all over the place in Yellowstone. Gotten many comments from people who said it was so efficient and they saw so much more using my guide than they would have another guide. Some people said they bought an actual full guide, like a book, and they ended up just using my itinerary because it was just laid out for them on what to do and see. And again, remember, I have an audio guide that comes with it, so you can listen to stories about the park while you're driving around. So one day I will write a book about Yellowstone, a big full travel guide, but our itinerary is a great game plan to go see it. Bill Polk, any recommendations for restaurants in the Wilson, Teton Village area? So Bill, I have an article on my website about where to eat in Jackson, Wyoming, in the Jackson Hole area. So please search "We're in the Rockies" restaurants in Jackson, and you'll find my article there. We actually did a poll of people on our channel, so we got a bunch of people in their recommendations. That was pretty good, and we've tried many places. Although my mom always suggests going to Signal Mountain Lodge and getting the mound of nachos. This is huge mound of nachos that will feed a whole family. So you got to try that. Okay, so let's see. Where am I? Okay, Bill Polk, love your vids. The bear spray one was funny and insightful. That was a little embarrassing. So we did a bear spray video, and where we actually learned how to spray bear spray, and we tested 3 different cans and sprayed them at a stuffed animal bear. So you can search bear spray on YouTube and find our video of spraying this bear. It was kind of funny. Cheryl did most of it and did a really good job, and it was kind of fun. But we actually gassed ourselves out with the bear spray. So it is a good idea, though. Speaking of the bear spray, I went around because I did some hiking back in the trees here these last 2 days. I carried a can of bear spray with me. You can just put it on your holster on your belt and carry that bear spray with you and know how to use it. Like, watch our video, because there's a little tab you have to pull off, and it is good to know how to use the bear spray and when to spray it and all that stuff. And let me tell you, I forgot my bear spray on one of the hikes, and I was all alone. So this is kind of a no-no in Yellowstone. You don't go hiking all alone, because that's really when most of the issues occur in all the national parks, is when people are hiking alone. They fall off ledges, they break an ankle, whatever, they get attacked by a bear. So I was all alone in the forest and had left my bear spray in the car on one hike. And I was just going around chanting, "Hello, is anybody there? Hello, bear." I kept making all sorts of noise, because they always say make noise so that you warn the bear that you're coming. The problem is when you surprise the bear and just kind of come up upon it, and then they're surprised and they react. So I'm just out there all alone in the forest yelling for the bears. It was kind of funny, but certainly felt a lot better having the bear spray on me when I was hiking, especially because I was hiking all alone. Okay, so Jin Yu, any good restaurants or food in the park? So Jin, Yellowstone is known for having bad food. It's just what everybody says. But we had a delicious meal at Roosevelt Lodge. So that was probably our favorite place. We not only ate at the lodge, but we did the Old West cookout, which is where they take you back into the valley and feed you a steak dinner. We loved those. Now, this last time I was there, I ate at Lake the lake area and I ate at the Old Faithful area and the canyon area. Of those, I would say the canyon area was the best. There's a little restaurant there that they serve slow food fast, is what they say. My guess is you probably get a little bit what you pay for there. So there's plenty of diners and grills in Yellowstone. Some of those were pretty bad. I got to say, they were not very good. I think the dining rooms are probably good, but they're pretty expensive. I think Old Faithful was about $40 for a plate in the diner there, or the dining room at Old Faithful, the fancier place. So anyway, we've done an article on that as well, Jen, that you can search on our website. We're in the Rockies, where to eat in Yellowstone. Search that up and you'll see a whole guide on Yellowstone food. Okay, so Cheryl says the bear spray video was painful to make. And yes, it was. We were spraying ourselves on accident. Okay, Pablo, the app for iPhone has the official MPS maps of all parks for free. Download it. Works perfectly. The same map that the rangers give you at the entrance. So yes, if you're looking for a map for Yellowstone, you can get it on that app or just by going to their website. I always work off of those maps. Marley Pagel asks, so no Lamar Valley in July, and I would be willing to bet no Lamar Valley in July. Who knows, Marley? You never know. They work miracles there. I was really surprised at how quickly they reopened the Northern Loop. So you never know. Just stay in touch with those pages that I sent you there, the updates. Bill Polk asks, is it possible to hit Upper Loop in Yellowstone from Wilson in a day or too far? And Bill, I would say that's too far. You're going from Wilson in Grand Teton National Park all the way through Teton, all the way through the Southern Loop, up around the Northern Loop, and that is a lot of driving in one day. I would not recommend that. That's a lot of driving. And you'd just be driving by stuff. It'd actually probably be frustrating because you'd just be driving by a bunch of amazing stuff and you'd want to stop, but you'd have no time to do it. So I wouldn't do that, Bill. Oh, Cheryl is at the pool listening in on this. This is great. Okay. Sue Heron asks airport. I think you're asking maybe Jackson. Sue, I'm sorry. I'm not quite sure what you're asking there with the airport. You might want to email me. Okay, Pablo Navarro, can I buy the all-year pass at the entrance of Glacier National Park and then use it at Yellowstone and Grand Teton on the next 10 days? Should I buy it online or in the entrance is okay? So here's the thing on the park passes now. This year, they just went with an electronic park pass for the first time. So you can buy it online and they'll ship you an actual park pass that looks like this. This is the annual park pass here. So they'll ship that to you. They also send you a downloadable PDF of the park pass that you can use for entrance, which is brand new this year. You used to not be able to do that. Pablo, I always just buy my park pass when I get there though, because it's good for 1 year when you buy it. So I always just say, instead of buying it online ahead of time, a month ahead of time or 2 months ahead of time and wasting that month or two, I just buy it when I arrive at the park. But I can understand buying it online because it won't slow the line down as much. So it's up to you what you want to do there. But once you have that park pass, the annual pass, you can use it at any of the parks. So yes, you can buy it at Glacier and use it for Yellowstone and Teton on the same trip. Also, if you're military, you can get one of these for free. If you meet certain disability requirements, you can get it for free. If you have a fourth grader, a child in fourth grade, they get a pass for free and you are their guest into the park. So you have to be with them when you enter. This was kind of a little bit annoying because when I went there, I actually have a fourth grader this year. And so I was going to get the fourth grade pass, but she wasn't going to go with me to the park. So they wouldn't let me just use it on my own. So I ended up buying the pass anyway because my pass for last year had expired. So, and then if you are 60 or older, I believe, is it 60 or older? I'm sure some of you out there know this question. It's either 60 or 62, but you get this for the rest of your life. You still have to pay the $80, but you get it. It's good for the rest of your life. So for the rest of us, it's good for 1 year. Okay. Regarding the Yellowstone printed map, I asked for one and they said they don't give it out as much as they had printing issues. So now they give out a paper copy. Okay, so IB is saying they're having printing issues, and so they're not giving out that brochure apparently. Pablo Navarro says, your guide is great. I bought Yellowstone and Grand Teton and planned everything with it. Just now need to fill the day of Lamar Valley. Yes, Pablo. So maybe spend a little bit more time around Mammoth Hot Springs. Definitely drive over Mount Washburn. So drive south over Mount Washburn. And I would spend more time at Roosevelt a little bit by eating at the lodge or doing the Old West Cookout. That would be a great way to fill your time there, Pablo. Being McBean. So Teresa says, yes, the guys were fantastic. So worth it. Thank you. And thank you, Teresa, for buying it. Really appreciate it. Bill Pollock says he definitely bought a can of Frontiersman bear spray once I watched your video. So we tested, this is really kind of funny, but we tested the length of how far the bear spray cans sprayed. So we tested like 3 different kinds of bear spray, and we actually measured the length. We measured how long they sprayed for, how big the cloud was. It was kind of funny. By no means scientific, of course, but we were a little surprised that one of them seemed to stand out above the others there. So Teresa says the nachos at Signal Mountain were actually a mountain of nachos, and they were delicious. So there you go if you're at Grand Teton. And by the way, again, I know this is a Yellowstone thing, but Grand Teton is so amazing. The mountains are really, really cool. We just spent 2.5 weeks in Europe, and we spent some time in Bavaria, Germany, and heading over into the Alps in Austria, and just gorgeous, amazing, beautiful. And they kind of reminded us of the Tetons. And gosh, the Tetons are just, they're every bit what the Alps are. They're just incredible. So definitely go check out the Tetons. I know that Jackson is kind of an expensive place, but if you can swing it, if you can work your way into getting into the Grand Tetons and hike into those mountains a little bit, you think that from the valley floor, you've seen the Tetons, and you think, well, that's the Tetons. I've seen them. That's it. I can turn around and go back to Yellowstone. It's really not like that. If you can get into the foothills, the look of them changes, and then you see all this amazing, these rivers flowing down, and just like the flowers, the glacial lakes. I mean, spend some time around Grand Teton. You really, really love it. Okay. Cheryl's mad that I left the bear spray in the car. I didn't tell her that. So yeah, in fact, when I left, my little daughter was really concerned. She wanted to go with me to Yellowstone because she was afraid I was going to get eaten by a bear. So, and then I left my bear spray in the car, and I was thinking, oh, she's going to be right. I'm going to get eaten by a bear. So, okay. IB, again, thank you for buying our guide. She says she saw most of Yellowstone and Grand Teton because of the guide, and it was really smooth. So thank you all of you who bought the guide and who are saying good things about it. Really, really appreciate it. Jeanette Blaze, in Quebec, Canada, they tell us to sing. So Jeanette, she's talking about the bears, how to get the bears' attention to let them know that you're coming. There is a really funny video on YouTube with a guy singing Roxanne in the woods to warn the bears. So that video is kind of one of the ones we watched, a little bit of an inspiration for us to make our own bear video. Very funny guy. And I thought about singing Roxanne in the woods, but then I thought, if somebody else is over there, they're going to think I'm completely kooky. So I'm just going to ask if anybody else is out there. IB, Old Faithful dining room is $40 per person for a buffet meal. Okay, and I haven't eaten in the dining room, so I don't know if it's worth it. And the Old Faithful food for the buffet was really good, she says. We had salmon and prime ribs, so that's good to hear. IB also says the old Roosevelt cookout, the Old West cookout was really good. Oh yeah, and they have cowboy coffee there. So again, I just released a video about that as well, so you can check out our YouTube channel. Just search up Roosevelt cookout, and you can see what it's like. I did a whole thing on it. Life skills with Cheryl. That's my wife. She says the Jackson Airport is now open. Yep. And Jay Sook says, is there call reception in the park? Do not plan on cell phone reception in Yellowstone. You're more likely to get it in Grand Teton, especially the closer you get to Jackson, Wyoming. But don't plan on cell reception in Yellowstone National Park. If you're in the gateway towns, though, like West Yellowstone, you'll have reception there. Okay, Aaron Hodel just realized that my almost 5th grader still counts as a 4th grader till August, so he's our ticket in next month. There you go. Good way to save some money. Pablo Navarro's son is in his fourth year in Costa Rica, and he's coming with us. Will they make it for international schools? Pablo, just search up every kid in a park, fourth grader or something like that. So the program that they do, there's a little website that says every kid in a park, I think is what they call that. They're trying to get kids outdoors, get them to the parks. So that's kind of the program that they're using. So just search up fourth grader free park pass, something like that, and they'll walk you through how to do it. Honestly, I think most of it's on the honor system there. So if he's in fourth grade in Costa Rica, I'm sure that's fine. Sue Heron, how easy is it to get to Idaho from Jackson? So Sue, it's very easy. So Idaho is on the other side of the Teton Mountains. In fact, while you're driving through Idaho to Yellowstone, if you're coming from like Salt Lake City, you can actually see the Tetons over there. And then Jackson's on the other side. So to get over to Idaho is easy, but you have to go through a mountain pass. So you're driving over the Tetons to get over to Idaho. It takes about an hour or something like that to get over there. Old Ranger, no horseback rides in the park after Labor Day. I talked with them today as I arrived the day after Labor Day. Bummer, Old Ranger. That's too bad. I'm sorry that no horseback rides. Old Ranger went on a horseback ride in Monument Valley this year. How cool is that? Monument Valley. That's where John Wayne, rode around, and you can go to John Wayne Point and all that. And I think your picture, well, at least your picture was that for a while, I think. So Old Ranger, that is super cool. By the way, we're going to Monument Valley, and so maybe you need to let me know where we need to go for that horse ride. Coke Girl, I collect park annual passes. Does Yellowstone annual pass for this year commemorate the 150th anniversary? That's a good question. I don't know about that, Coke Girl, because I always just get the annual pass for all the parks. This is called America the Beautiful Pass. I never do get just a park pass. I never buy the actual park pass. I just get the big one. So not sure about that. Dorna, are there any hot springs that we can swim in while in the area? Our airport is Jackson. Granite Hot Springs is near Jackson. Granite Hot Springs is run by the Forest Service, actually. So check that out. And Dorna, I can't remember if there's other ones. I know quite a ways away is Thermopolis. So Thermopolis, Wyoming is kind of famous for the hot springs there. But that's a little ways away from Jackson. But Granite Hot Springs is probably where you want to go there, Dorna. Bill Pollock says, I have seen that Roxanne video. It was very funny. I think that was a bear spray one too. Yes, that was a bear spray one. Life skills. So Cheryl loves the Roxanne video. So that's pretty funny there. Ivan Romero is traveling from Cody through the park to the west entrance on a 40-foot motorhome. Viable, or is it better to go around the park? I'm staying near the west entrance. No, that's just fine. Yeah, you don't want to go around the park. That'd take you forever. So yes, if you're staying in Cody and you're going to the west entrance, I mean, you have to go over a mountain pass as you go through Buffalo Bill Scenic Highway, but I don't think that's a problem going on a 40-foot motorhome. It's certainly not restricted against RVs driving there. So if as long as you're comfortable driving over a pass, steep drop on one side. Again, gorgeous drive from Cody. But yeah, you'd want to go through the park if possible, not around, because that would take you forever. Okay, Bill Polk, Coke Girl, thank you. Appreciate it. Bill Polk, loved y'all's video on what to take to the parks. Got to take a blanket for my wife and comfortable running shoes. So Bill's mentioning a video that we did about what to pack for Yellowstone. So again, I hope you guys are all keeping notes on this visiting, because we've done so much. Sometimes people don't know what we've done, but we have done a video on what to pack for Yellowstone. Just search that up on YouTube. That video, we actually didn't talk about the blanket that Bill's referring to. There's a blanket company in Utah here called Minky Couture, and they make the softest blankets. People just love them. I mean, what you want to do there is check out our website. So if you go to our website, we have a discount code for those blankets. So Bill, leave your review on here on the chat about those blankets, because it's kind of hard to explain to people that the blankets really are, like, people love the blankets. They just love these blankets. So people are like, it's just a blanket. But when you actually buy it, most people just kind of fall in love with it. So Bill, post your review on the blankets there. We have let's see, we have a link here with the blankets. Let me see if I can find it and I'll post it in here. Road trip gear is what we've put this on, I think. Yeah, I'll put this in. So we have a code if you want to buy this blanket. Great for a road trip. And you'll save some money there with that code. Okay, Dorna says, I've purchased the Xanterra Lower Loop Tour, but will you please share a little about how to get your itinerary? Thank you, Dorna. So my itinerary is just on my website, we'reintherockies.com. I will put a link here to our guides in the chat, okay? And this is a digital download. So you purchase it and you get a PDF download immediately, and you get my audio guide to download immediately. So with the PDF, most people will print that PDF and they'll use that for their game plan as they go to the park. And again, it's flexible. So depending on where you're staying, you can reorganize the days. It really does work well. Like I've got some really pretty cool secrets in there for seeing more geysers and how to just make a more efficient trip to Yellowstone. Been visiting for over 30 years and just kind of love this sort of thing, being able to help you have a good trip there. And then the audio guide, I write my own audio guide. I do all my own research. I've read many books about Yellowstone. And then I try to pick out the best stories and I actually write it up and record my own audio guide on there. So there's about 3 hours of audio stories, things like the earthquake of 59, the fires of 88, feeding the bears, all that stuff. So all that is in the guide there, Dorna. And so you just download it right there and you have immediate access to it right when you download it. The audio guide you'll put on your phone so that you can listen to it in your car while you're driving around. And then again, the itinerary you can just print out there for you. Okay. Okay. And Bill Paul driving up from Texas next month. Very cool. He says he loves the drive. We did it in 2020. Coming up from Texas, that's a pretty good drive. I imagine you're going through Denver and then you're going in through maybe Jackson or the East Entrance. Okay, Jason Lynch said, thanks for the Teton tip video. We loved Taggart Lake. So Jenny Lake is the famous lake in Grand Teton, but Taggart Lake is a beauty as well. That's a really good one. Jason Lynch says we stayed at Lizard Creek the day we went to Yellowstone, and Lizard Creek is in Grand Teton on the north end of Grand Teton. So that's a little more doable than staying at a place like Wilson. Lizard Creek, by the way, has hardly any campsites, I believe, Jason. So that's pretty cool if you got in there. I think it's kind of hard to get in there. Dorna, thank you for all the great information. Thank you for tuning in and asking questions. Really appreciate it. Tom says, very quick delivery of the guide. We will be there September 3rd. So I'm not quite sure what you're meaning there, but Tom, I'm not sure if you purchased it or not, but I think maybe you're saying you got the guide immediately. And yes, it's just online. Again, it's a digital thing. So if you buy the guide, you get it immediately right when you buy it. Julie May says the audio guides are awesome to fill the time during the drives between sites. Gives great color and context for the park. Julie, thank you so much. Really do appreciate that. I kind of poured my heart and soul into these audio guides. I've done audio guides for many of the national parks. We have covered 8 national parks now, or areas. So like Mount Rushmore and the Black Hills is actually multiple national parks, but we're looking at that as one area. I've done audio guides for all of them except for one. So I'm actually working on the Glacier audio guide now. But yeah, those audio guides, they take me quite a while. And again, I just read and research. That's kind of what I do. And then I write and I try to come up with the best stories to share with you. So Tom says he did purchase it, and thank you so much for all that, everybody, for all the support that you guys for watching. Those of you who bought the guides, really appreciate it. Okay, so I hope that maybe puts your mind at ease. Those are all the questions here. I think it's still a great year to visit Yellowstone. That was like one of the best trips I ever had there. It was just so free of the crowds, and I saw so much. And I'll be posting some videos about it, but really, really loved it. And I think it's still a very good year. Like, I think that's one of these years that people are scared away, but go on to the Xanterra website. It's called like Yellowstone National Park Lodges, I think. And they have tons of lodging available in Yellowstone. So which is not always the case, but they have tons of lodging. So you could really get some pretty cool places to stay, I believe, at kind of a last minute thing. I know a lot of you are flying. That can be a little bit of a challenge, but still. Okay, a couple more questions while we're on it. Cheryl says, if you're on a major road trip, don't forget the Black Hills. That's true. A lot of people overlook the Black Hills. You might think about Mount Rushmore and think it's just Mount Rushmore, but the Black Hills are gorgeous, and they're a 4-day area to visit, just like Yellowstone is. So Linda Hughes says she loved listening to the audio guides. You guys are making me blush here. I really appreciate it. That you're liking those audio guides. That really makes me happy, because I really do think about you and think about the visitor experience the whole time I make that guide. So Pablo arrives in Bozeman. I told my wife that the alternative route was Glacier National Park and finally included it on the trip. So Pablo's doing Glacier, Yellowstone, and Grand Teton. That's pretty amazing. So yeah, you'll see. Wow, that's the best scenery in the world right there. Okay, Ivy says, thank you, Cheryl, about the information using the toilet before going to Jenny Lake, crossing over Jenny Lake. Yeah, so there's no toilet on the other side of Jenny Lake. So use that before you hop on the boat. Kim Miller says the local businesses need our support this year. And yes, they do. So I would, if you're looking for a charitable cause, I would encourage you to donate to something there. So people are thinking about Yellowstone, and of course, Yellowstone needs to be rebuilt and the roads need to be rebuilt. But Yellowstone's going to get federal funding for that. And they'll get private funding too. They'll get a lot of donations, but it's the residents in those towns, Cook City, Silvergate, and Gardner, Montana, and maybe even Red Lodge, Montana, because they're on the other side of the Beartooth Highway. All those residents are being affected big time, and they all have some GoFundMe fundraisers out there. I don't have the links for them or anything like that, but just consider them as well, because those people, I mean, they provide the services for us. I really do appreciate the people that take care of us tourists, because when your economy relies on tourism, I mean, you know that, look, we did a whole video on dumb Yellowstone behavior, dumb tourist behavior in Yellowstone. So imagine living in a tourist town where, you know, plenty of the people that are coming through there really aren't all that polite. And so they do put up with a lot. They provide the services for us, which is wonderful. And so we're always trying to at least pick them up a little bit. So just consider, donating to them. And don't just think about Yellowstone Park, but think about those people that really need the help. So, okay, Sean Juke is looking forward to the Glacier guide. Yes, we have a Glacier itinerary available, but I don't have the audio guide for it done yet. I'm still studying and working there. But Sean, appreciate that. Jason Lynch, thanks for your awesome tips. We had a well-planned trip and saw so many interesting sights. Hayden Valley had the biggest elk we ever saw. Hayden Valley is often overlooked. And our neighbor, we have a neighbor who loves Yellowstone so much. He named his child Hayden after Hayden Valley. Lamar gets all the love, but Hayden is wonderful as well. And Madison Valley gets no attention at all. And it always has wildlife when I go through there. So Zillan, we're coming through the middle of September from the north entrance. Do you think they will be opening a way in, or should we reroute to the east entrance coming from Maryland? First of all, hello, Maryland. I've lived in Maryland before and love Maryland. So that's great. You're coming out here. I would probably, Zillan, I would probably make new plans if I were you, just to be safe, because I don't know if they're going to have that road opened by September or not. No idea there. And Mike Baggett says, Kathy and I appreciate this follow-up for Yellowstone. All of your guides are well written, including your new Black Hills guide. Extremely helpful. Thank you. This is starting to sound like a sales pitch. I really I'm not paying these people to say that. Tony Porter, going to buy your guide in September, but wondering if you're updating it to match the current closures. Okay, so I addressed that a little bit earlier. I'm not planning on updating the guide this year, because with both of the loops open, the guide works. It's still very good. It's very well thought out. The only adjustment you need to make is Lamar Valley. And I actually even addressed that in a little supplement to the guide. So the guide's great. It works. All itineraries, you're going to need to make adjustments a little bit here or there based on your situation. But it is a super solid game plan for seeing Yellowstone, I promise. Okay, Rhonda says, Thank you for taking the time to talk about Yellowstone after the floods. This video has been very informative. Thank you, Rhonda. And then finally, Sue Heron will be at Canyon Lodge tomorrow. Wow, you're going to be at Canyon tomorrow. That's great. Wonderful. So, okay, it's been an hour and 20 minutes that you've listened to me, and thank you so much for joining. I hope it's been helpful. Stay tuned for all the updates. I've got some more videos coming out on Yellowstone after this trip here. So thank you so much. And again, we do have a consulting service. So if you're going to Yellowstone and you want our consulting, like one-on-one consulting, we can do that for you as well, where we actually help you piece together your entire trip. So some of you are going on big road trips. We'll actually kind of help you out with a day-by-day itinerary to piece that all together. And that really goes in conjunction with our guides. So thank you, Bill. Thank you, Marley. Everybody, thank you. And have a great time. And maybe we'll see you at the park. If you see me at the park, say hi, okay? Take care.